Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. We're going back to the vault. Apologies for everyone. My schedule has been insane lately, which is good in a way, because the alternative of not being busy is causes a lot of stress in my life. So yeah, just a lot of it's been like work related and a lot of travel involved, that kind of thing. So I've fallen a little bit behind schedule. So rather than not have an episode this week, I wanted to go back into the vault a couple of years ago when Randy Larsen and I were doing these Road to Ruin episodes. It was a lot of fun, and we might actually go back to doing those again. They were really cool dives into classic records and movies. And apparently this was my idea to do this film, Werner Herzog's Bad Lieutenant. And for all you guys out there, you probably are more familiar with the Abel Ferrara Bad Lieutenant from the early 90s featuring Harvey Keitel. But Werner Herzog, it wasn't a straight remake, but more of a reimagining of this story. And initially I watched this movie and I didn't know how I felt about it, because I love the Abel Ferrara. I mean, I love Abel Ferrara in general, but I also love his gritty, bleak, depraved rendition of New York City in the 90s. But under further review, I think I actually have turned my opinion around on Herzog's Bad Lieutenant. So anyway, in all its glory, this is the Road to Ruin episode that Randy and I did a few years ago, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I know there's been a lot of new listeners since then, so maybe you guys didn't catch this the first time around. As you know, I'm part of a gang, actually, of content creators. Not a group. A group has a sort of passive vibe to it. We're a gang of content creators warring against mediocrity in all its shapes and forms. Of course, I'm referring to the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Kicking things off every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion bringing us Horror Wolf 666. Quick note, Brandon and I are also collaborating on a Twin Peaks sub-series called The Black Lodge. Up next on Tuesdays, Jackie Smith brings us Into the Necrosphere, the premier extreme music podcast in the land, the greatest. Every week, we've got excellent content coming to you if you're into black metal, death metal, heavy metal, extreme metal, hardcore, that kind of thing. Wednesday is the first day of double shots. We've got, of course, Everything Went Black, which you're listening to right now. But we also have Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the band Trivax. Thursday, as well as being Necro Thursday, where we bring you the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. It is also day one of Soul Knox, Carl Haikara's exploration of all things dark, sinister, macabre. Friday, Mike Scandato's brother John Draper gives us Spitball Media, an irreverent pop culture exploration. Saturday is a day off. We go 6 days a week here. And on the 7th day of the week, which actually for us is Saturday, we take a break. But don't fret, because the Sinister Minister returns on Sunday, the day of the Sabbath, to bring us day 2 of Soul Knox. Carl and I are full on into our Darkness Weaves collaboration, where we discuss the work of Karl Edward Wagner. If you're into fantasy, dark fantasy, that is, sword and sorcery, horror, weird fiction, tune in, and we're going through the entire body of work by Karl Edward Wagner. If you enjoy the show, that's great. Share it with your friends. Follow us on social media. But if you really want to take that extra step, join the Everything Went Black Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to bonus content. For $5 a month, you get bonus content plus early access to the regular shows. For $25 a month, you can be a sponsor where you can promote your business, podcast, project, and you get an ad on the show, and there you go. Greetings, everyone. It's time for Road to Ruin. Me and Randy coming at you, our monthly show. How's it going, Randy?
Good, man. Good. Just hanging tight up here in Connecticut in the rain. We had some pretty bad thunderstorms today, and dodged a bullet where I am in Connecticut, but part of the state got demolished with like hail and trees falling on houses, and yeah, it was pretty brutal earlier.
Yeah. I have some news on the health and safety front. I finally am scheduled for vaccination. Finally.
Oh, good, man.
Yeah.
Good.
You know, tomorrow morning I have to drive up to Newark and get my first vaccine shot. And on May 13th, I get my second. And then that's it.
That's awesome, man. I got my second shot this past Friday. And fortunately, I had zero side effects or symptoms or residual illness. Because some other people I know on their second shot have gotten, pretty ill for like 24 hours. It was pretty much the exact same as my first shot. I had like a sore arm for like 48 hours, and I had zero symptoms. I didn't even have a headache or anything. So I feel like I got pretty lucky. So, yeah, pretty happy, dude. And I got like 5 more days to go, and I'll be the 2 weeks past. We were supposedly in the window of being pretty safe. So glad to hear your schedule.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, man. I'm a little bit disappointed in the state of New Jersey. Everyone I know has been vaccinated already, like fully, and they fucking made me wait till the bitter end, man. I'm kind of bummed out about that.
Yeah, that does suck, dude. I was screaming and yelling at the state of Connecticut, which I do often about many different things. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of the state, even though I lived here most of my life, but I was able. Well, my wife was able, with her hard work, was able to get me an appointment the day I became eligible, like my age group.
Uh-huh.
So that was pretty good, because I fall under the quote unquote essential worker umbrella that they created when this shit started, and just as I suspected, like when the chips are on the table, like the essential worker thing, it's just a joke. They didn't vaccinate essential workers first. At the last minute, they were like, "Oh, we're just going to do it by age," and their excuse was it's too hard to determine who's an essential worker. So I was pretty pissed off about that, but at the end of the day, I was able to get in sooner than I thought, so it's all good. I don't know what's going on down there, man. I thought New Jersey was on top of that kind of stuff.
For everyone else, they are. They don't give a fuck about me, though. Like I'm like, I'm probably one of the more important guys down here in Jersey. They're making me wait till like the last group. You know what I mean?
I think you're one of the most important people in New Jersey, to me anyway.
Oh, but everyone I know in New York, this is like one of the only times I still wish I lived in Brooklyn, because like most people I know, like Mike Scandato, he's fully vaccinated, man. Everyone I know has been got both shots already.
Yeah, I'm not letting any info out that anyone really cares about, but in a few weeks, our mutual friend Jeff will be coming out here for a visit from LA, and me and him will be fully vaccinated. He's fully vaccinated as well, which is cool.
Yeah, and we both heard about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at least
Jeff had a rough time with it, I guess.
Yeah, at least I'll have had my first vaccine, my first shot. You know what I mean? By the time, because I'll be going up there to see you guys, and we're gonna record a bunch of shit, episode wise. So, yeah, I'll have had my first vaccine, and my second one is scheduled for the 13th of May. So, I'll be somewhat protected. From my understanding.
Well, what's cool is the way, like, where we record at my house, I can just pop open a window, put a chair out there for you, and you can
sit outside
the window.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, whatever, man. Be that way.
We should probably let people know. Unfortunately, we were able to do the first 2 episodes of the new show, Road to Ruin, in person, but this third one we had to pull the over the phone deal just because of scheduling issues, which we're going to have to do from time to time.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But moving forward, we're trying to do everything in person. And for any of you guys who listen to Necromaniacs, the other show that I do with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid, Mike and I are gonna move to back to an in-person podcasting system over the next few weeks. We're probably gonna do a couple more over the phone, but probably starting sometime next month, we're gonna be doing them in person again, which is that's like the real deal, man. It's like over the phone's cool, but I think you can agree that having us both in the same room again was just way cooler and way more comfortable, I think, and just better quality,
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, sonically, it's always better, like, when we're in the same room, but I feel like there's just you just feed off each other a bit more, like, you can like look at each other, and like it's easier to not step on each other, when we're trying to finish sentences and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's always better in person, man. I think moving forward, we might have to do a few of these over the phone, but I think we got some ideas, some good ideas, or we'll be able to maybe knock out more than one episode at a time too.
Yeah, totally. We used to do that. I remember that was on the old Metal Matters days. Yeah.
Back when we were young.
So have you been checking out anything new this month or this week or whatever? Anything
as far as music?
Anything, music, movies?
I haven't watched, I watched the movie we're about to cover. And then I went back and watched the original Bad Lieutenant from 1992. Just to kind of get myself warmed up, for Port of Call, New Orleans, which was cool. I've seen both these movies, but I've seen both of them when they were released, and one of them was in 1992. So, I didn't remember a lot about the original. And the second one, I definitely was good to go back and watch it because I only remember bits and pieces. Even I was, 11 years ago at this point that came out, 2009. So, yeah, man. As far as new, I haven't watched any new movies. I tried to start watching that QAnon documentary.
Oh yeah, the one that's on Max, HBO Max.
HBO Max. Yeah, man, I couldn't even get through the first episode. I just got no tolerance for those fucking people, man. I can't even hear it. I can't listen to them. It just gets me upset. It fucking drives me crazy. These people are so fucking stupid.
I was fascinated by it, man. I watched the entire thing. I watched all the whole season or whatever. It's I think 6 episodes or something.
Maybe I need to go back because some other people have told me to what did it pay off to stick through it? To keep your attention the whole time? Or?
I mean, I was angry through the whole. I wasn't.
That was my problem.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. It wasn't like there's any redemption of any. It's not like the good guys win in the end or anything like that. But I was just fascinated by it just because I don't know, man. As the months go by, I feel like I need to just gather intel on the enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that seems like a good source of it from what I've seen.
Totally. And. Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, it's so fucking nuts though. Like just the people involved in that like whole operation. Like the 3 main players, fucking crazy, right? Insane.
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing this was a couple weeks ago. But one thing I did watch was do you get the Peacock network? It's like another streaming service.
Maybe it might be part of my Sling service. I don't know what is it exactly.
There's a 6-part documentary on John Wayne Gacy called "The Devil in Disguise."
Huh. Okay.
I'm a sucker for these crime documentary series, docu-series about serial killers and stuff like this, and this one was done really well. It's probably one of the better ones I've ever seen. And I wasn't expecting much with it being on the Peacock network, but I guess it doesn't really matter what anything's on anymore. It's like
it doesn't. Yeah.
It was done really well, man. That kept my attention. There's like 6 parts. They're like range from like 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. That was great.
Well, as you know, I'm ultra interested in that kind of stuff, and I'll see if I have it. I mean, maybe does that used to be like NBC or something like that, like the Peacock network?
Yeah, I think they're behind it for sure. It just popped up one day on my cable service as like right next to Amazon Prime and all that. It was like Peacock. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I clicked on it. It was movies and shit, and this was like original programming for that. And it was really good.
Yeah, it's crazy how stuff just like pops up with these new platforms and everything. It's like every day there seems to be something new. Like, for example, I'm getting deep into the Arrow streaming app, which we talked about briefly. There's that the Mentors documentary, and a lot of just like if you're familiar with the Arrow releasing Blu-ray releasing label, it's material that they have licensed already as Blu-rays, and I don't think their whole catalog is on there, but a lot of the stuff is material that they've already released as a Blu-ray. So there's a lot of that stuff on there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have a lot of those Arrow Blu-ray reissues. I have a bunch of those. They do a lot of cool like stuff I'm into, like a lot of classic 70s and 80s type, mainly horror, but they do other stuff too.
Yeah. There's a lot of westerns on there. There's kind of super dark westerns, like
nice.
The Italian ones. Like, I don't know. I like a lot of that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that stuff's fun, man. I don't. It's been a while since I've checked out any of that stuff, but a lot of that stuff I've checked out. It's fun.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I've been getting really deep into the new I Hate God record, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A history of nomadic behavior. Fucking great record.
Yeah, I don't want to say I've won that one out already, but when you asked what I've been listening to new, it's like the day that came out, I just ran that thing for for a couple weeks straight, and then I pre-ordered the vinyl and got that in. So I've been heavily into that as well. Although I'm taking a little break right now, so I don't get sick of it. But I really, really dig that. What's your thoughts on it?
I love it. I mean,
yeah.
The thing that really strikes me about it is just when you think you really got I Hate God figured out, you know what to expect from them. They give you a record like this, which is a lot. It's different, It's
It is.
It's this. I mean, obviously, it's I Hate God, so there's like a certain, there's like the Mike 9 vocals, which only that's unique to him, like his vocal delivery and his lyrics, and the signature Jimmy Bower guitar riffing. But it has like a very it's like blues, Black Flag, and Flipper all at the same time. You know what I mean?
I was hoping you were going to say Black Flag, because that was like my immediate thing after my first listen. I was like, wow, this was like side 2 My War, moving forward from there, slipping in that kind of later Black Flag stuff. Totally feel that heavy. And then, it's also could sound pretty different because it's the first record without Joey on drums. And it's also the first record without Brian Patton on the second guitar.
Right. With only Bower on guitars. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I don't know how big of that, plays into the feel, but it definitely feels a bit different in a good way,
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite bands of all time, but like, it's nice when one of your favorite bands can change it up a little and you still love it, I still thought it was an amazing record.
Yeah, and it's innovative too for them. It's like, no one sounds like I Hate God. Like they got their own distinctive thing. And there's a lot of bands that try. There's a lot of bands that, like I Hate God is the band that people compare other bands to. You know what I mean? It's like, these guys have this like I Hate God thing going on. It's not like you can say who I Hate God sound like. You can say that I can feel these different elements combining to make I Hate God, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, it's fantastic, man. I love it. It's I've been listening to it a lot, along with the new Cannibal Corpse record too, which features my friend Eric Rutan, which is really stoked, man. Like if you think about him for a minute, he was in Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Ripping Corpse, and Hate Eternal. It's like,
yeah, that's pretty heavy hitters, man.
Yeah. You know, and aside from his like prolific career as a producer, as a record producer, you know.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, that's cool that he's part of the band now, like full on. I got that's on my short list to check out. I have not checked that out. You're probably not a fan, but I've been really digging the new Bongzilla record that came out.
I didn't know they had Tuesday. A record out, actually. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It came out on 4/20. Can you believe it? Like...
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it. I mean, if you're into them at all, if you're into any of their old records, it's definitely worth checking out. It's cool. They're a power trio now. I guess one of the guitar players left. And Mule Boy, the singer, he moved over to bass. He plays bass and sings now. And, you know, it sounds definitely like classic Bongzilla, but there's some cool, more atmospheric kind of stuff on there. And it's kind of, you know, along the same lines of what I Hate God did. It's slightly different, you know. You can hear that it's Bongzilla, but there's definitely some other stuff going on. I've always been a sucker for that, man. You know, a lot of people kind of, I think, just disregard them because of the name and stuff too. But I always thought they were a cool band.
Are they still on Relapse, or they work with a different label now?
I know Relapse reissued like all their stuff a few years ago when they kind of got back together after a long hiatus. But the new record is on a label called Heavy Psych Sounds. It has been putting out some pretty cool stuff too. They put out a couple, or I think they're reissues actually, of this band called Sonic Flower, which was the bass player for Church of Misery's band after Church of Misery kind of disbanded for a while. And that Sonic Flower band recorded a couple records. It's like instrumental, kind of more of a 70s psychedelic kind of thing than like a sludgy doom thing like Church of Misery. There's some other cool stuff they're doing on that label. They're doing that new band called Stoner with Nick Olivari and Brant Bjork. Some other stuff too. But yeah, it's on that label. It's not on Relapse.
Oh, that's cool. And it's you know, it's funny. I was supposed to interview Nick Olivari for Metal Matters. The dude just fucking totally flaked on multiple occasions. We never actually spoke.
That's unfortunate because I've always been a fan of him and his music and stuff, and it would have been cool. I don't hear a lot of interviews with him. It would have been cool if that would have materialized. But, you know, from what I hear from the rumor mill, like he's kind of a wild card, you know?
Yeah, it's my understanding as well. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
so for this episode, we're doing something a little different. Instead of talking about music, we're talking about a movie. And we're talking about the Werner Herzog Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. Which is like, most people would think that's kind of an odd choice of a movie to talk about, you know, but how did we actually arrive at this decision? That's what I want to know.
Pretty random. I was in my basement after work, like on a Saturday night, having a couple beers or something. We hadn't really discussed what we were doing. We knew we were going to have to knock one out over the phone before we actually got together. And I don't think we knew what we were doing. And you just like threw it out there. You're like, hey, have you seen this movie? And I was like, yeah, a long time ago. And then like, I think it was left at that for like 2 days. And then you're like, hey, do you want to do this movie? Like cover this movie? And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I don't know. So you gotta ask yourself that question. Okay. I don't know how that came up in your mind, or you just rewatched it and thought it'd be cool, or what. But
no, I haven't. I mean, obviously, I watched this over the last couple of days, but I haven't seen this movie since 2009 when it came out. You know?
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know how this came back on your radar. But I thought it was a cool idea because we, you know, kind of the idea of doing the Road to Ruin thing was tackle some different things outside of the stuff we usually do with music. So I thought it was a cool idea. And then it's just such a fucking whacked out movie. And I even think it's kind of crazy that Werner Herzog did this movie.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, that's kind of, I guess, what I think I was thinking about this film and just trying to make sense of it because, you know, I love Abel Ferrara. I'm a fan of like all of his work, and you know, to some extent, I think all of his stuff is great. I mean, I think all of his stuff is great, but to varying degrees, obviously. And I think I had just watched The Addiction, the movie with Lily Taylor in it, the vampire one.
Okay. Yep.
And you know, of course, I think probably one of the first movies I've ever seen by him was, well, actually, the first movie I saw by him was Driller Killer, and
that's great.
But I wasn't aware. Like I saw that when I was a kid, like in high school, because it was like, oh, the Driller Killer, you know, and it's got this punk rock band in it, and watching it without any real awareness of where that movie fit into the world of, you know, movies and cinema and whatever. And then later on, I caught The Bad Lieutenant, and that's what really drew me in with Abel Ferrara. And then I realized that he made the Driller Killer, and I was like, oh wow, that's fucking crazy. So that movie is such an important film to me. The Abel Ferrara version, it's like right up there with Taxi Driver as far as like just like dark, like over the top kind of, you know, studies and desperation and darkness and all that stuff. And then when I found out in 2009 that Werner Herzog was now this is the thing. I'm not going to say that they're pretty adamant about saying it's not necessarily a remake. All right. So when Werner Herzog was involved with a film that shared the name of Abel Ferrara's film, I was intrigued by it. I remember we had gotten like, you know, when I was more into the, you know, film production stuff around that time. And like I had happened upon a burn of this film, like a DVD burn of it. And that was, you know, I was given this to check out. And I was like, man, this is so fucking out of control. And we'll get into why. But no one really talks about this movie. But I think like in the same way that I can go back and listen to those Black Sabbath records that came out in the 90s and enjoy those, I was wondering if I would be able to enjoy this movie as a standalone thing. And I have to say that it does stand alone. If you forget that Abel Ferrara, if you like divorce it from Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant and watch this thing on its own, it really is quite a fucking experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, they couldn't be like more different. Yeah, matter of fact, like a few minutes before like we started recording, I was texting with Jeff Kashid, your partner there, and Necro.
He's more your partner than mine, man. Like you've known him way longer.
No. I don't want him. He's yours. We were just chatting about the movie a little bit. He was just saying, you know, I was like, yeah, I think the first one's, you know, pretty. I would say I probably like the first one better as a film, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's apples and oranges, and he's right. It is. It's like they're very, you know, subject matter wise, they're very similar, but as films, they're very different. The way they're approached. I mean, just take Harvey Keitel as the lead versus Nicolas Cage. I think I'm not a big Nicolas Cage fan. Never have been. Matter of fact, I think he's pretty awful. Although I'm a fan of a lot of movies he's in. Where Harvey Keitel, I think, is like, you know, a master of his craft.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think I don't have the same disdain for Nicolas Cage, but I do think that his career is very hit or miss depending on who's directing him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he must work cheap. That's all I can think.
Well, I know that he, if you believe the things you read, he has developed a lot of debts and he has to work all the time to pay down these rich guy expenditures he has.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, just before we get into, I just want to drop some information about the production of the movie and all that. So it came out November 20th, 2009, directed by Werner Herzog, who you all should know. He's got a huge filmography. Some notable stuff is the Grizzly Man documentary. His remake of Nosferatu the Vampire.
It's great.
Yeah. Written by William Finkelstein, and he's done mostly television work like L.A. Law, and he's American. Okay, I'm drawing attention to the fact that he's American because there's something I want to talk about once we actually start talking about the movie. Produced by Edward Pressman, and he actually is the same producer of Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant, believe it or not.
Really? That's
blasphemy, man. Blasphemy. The movie's fucking long. It's 122 minutes long. And that's long.
It is long.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I put it on, I was like, wow, this is longer than I thought.
Yeah. And then it's got a pretty well-known cast. We got Nick Cage as the lead in the film, Terrence McDonough. We all know Nick Cage from a billion things. He played Sailor in Wild at Heart. He was in Color Out of Space. He was most recently in those movies. Mandy is another one. Eva Mendes, who was back in 2009, she was kind of like a big up and coming starlet, I think, right?
Yeah, she was. What year did 25th Hour come out?
I don't know, but I remember it was somewhere. It was before that, I think. But yeah, it was. We haven't really heard too much from her lately, but she's around, I guess. Val Kilmer, who I barely recognized in the movie at first. I was like, this motherfucker looks just like Val Kilmer, except he's shot, But I'm like, oh wait, that is Val Kilmer.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's like, he looks fucked up in this movie, right?
He looks a little heavy, man. He looks a little heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks weird. I agree.
He's come a long way from his role in Heat, where he was like a lean and mean version of himself.
Maybe stop doing coke after Heat and then start eating more or something. You know?
Maybe. Brad Dourif, an actor's actor, is in this, and he plays like a bookie. Of course, we know him from a lot of. He's like a fucking. He played Chucky, Child's Play. He was in Exorcist 3. He was in Blue Velvet. One of my favorite movies of all times. And
great.
This might not resonate with too many people, but I'm a big Flannery O'Connor fan, and he played Hazel Motes in the film version of Wise Blood, the Flannery O'Connor novel. So that's kind of important to me.
That's a great movie too.
Yeah. We have Fairuza Balk, who has a very small part, but a very impactful part, if you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Some lesser-known people who became fairly well-known, not as a result of this film, but over the next 10 years. We got Shea Whigham, who you can enjoy his work on a variety of different HBO series, one of which is one of my favorite of all time, is True Detective Season 1. He was in Boardwalk Empire, and he was also in the most recent Perry Mason thing that's going on. And Michael Shannon, who was also in Boardwalk Empire as well as a bunch of other movies. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting cast. Definitely with Werner Herzog directing and all these people involved. There was definitely some kind of budget put together for this film.
Right. A lot of names.
Yeah.
A lot of names. Don't you think it's odd that he directed this film? I'm not an expert on his work, but what I know of it, I don't know that he's done anything like this. It just seems like so out of his wheelhouse.
There's a lot of things about this film that don't make any sense to me, definitely. And I mean, when I remember being like completely blown away that Werner Herzog was involved in this movie. I thought it was like a joke. Yeah. I thought it was like some, fake, like gag that was circulating that. Because, he's not known as like a hard, crime. Like, he's never done anything like this. He's like a very highbrow, like European sort of dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. That's what like threw me off. I was like, okay. It's just bizarre. It's bizarre.
Yeah. But of course, Abel Ferrara had problems with this. You know what I mean? He was very upset that they were using the Bad Lieutenant title. And kind of, I think the troublemaker behind this whole thing is William Finkelstein, the guy who wrote it, because he submitted a draft of a screenplay to Herzog with the title Bad Lieutenant, and obviously Finkelstein knew about Ferrara's film that came out in like 92 or 93 or something like that. But he swore. And Herzog wasn't aware of any of this stuff. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. He's not that he didn't know about Abel Ferrara or the film.
Right.
And then Finkelstein was like, no, it's not a remake. But I guess Herzog insisted that they change the name. See, Finkelstein was all gung ho to go to film, to go out to the presses as the Bad Lieutenant. Which is fucking nuts, right?
Like not Bad Lieutenant 2, but just at like, interesting.
That's a fucked up move, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar in some ways to what's happening to some of these horror franchises like Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff like that. On the surface, but I mean, this sounds a little more like deliberate almost,
Well, what it reminds me of, too, is how the Italians, when horror films, would try to hijack, like, American films somehow, like Zombie and Night of the Living Dead and Zombie 2.
Right.
Night of the Living Dead came out in Italy as Zombie. And then
right.
the Fulci film, Zombie 2, was, like, trying to, like, hijack the buzz around Night of the Living Dead. So that's the beginning of this little narrative I've developed in my head about this whole film, about how it's like a very Italian European thing that's going on with this movie in some ways. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm like this. I started the second time I watched it and I started reading about what was going on. I started thinking about how a lot of this reminds me of like the kind of stuff that went on with like Fulci and like Mario Bava and all that, and those films, those great films that came out, and they were trying to, like frame them against successful films and kind of like grab some of the heat off of that. And that's kind of what this feels like to me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
So they negotiated over the title and they came up with Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, which is like, there's something about that title that just fucking makes me laugh too. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's funny,
Yeah, it's like so specific and like kind of like longer than it needs to be. It's like confusing almost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But one major change is that they moved it from New York City to New Orleans. And then of course, this is like, I guess, in an attempt to kind of like create their own story, separate and put some distance between this and the Ferrara's, film, which is like probably a good idea. Because I think back in the 90s when Bad Lieutenant came out, that was like a breakaway film for Abel Ferrara. That put him on the map with a lot of people, really.
Sure. They didn't do such a great job then because, like, I mean, the premise is obviously the same, and then, like, there's the gambling kind of connection, obviously. A lot of the narrative is exactly the same. So, I mean, they didn't do the best job of separating it from the original, I don't think.
I mean, basically, it is the same story. Some of the set pieces are different, but there's also a lot of the set pieces that are identical to it. I mean, it's about a corrupt cop, but where Keitel's version of the character gets murdered at the end of the film, Nick Cage makes it out alive, though still unredeemed. You know what I mean?
Promoted.
Yeah. I mean, but still he's still a piece of shit, though, you know?
Yeah, oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't even know where to start. You know, there's like the opening like kind of thing with the snakes crawling, through the murky post-Katrina ravaged New Orleans water. Reminds me of the record cover from our mutual friend Mateo's band Kavara.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right?
They have a snake, like a viper or whatever, on the record cover. Yeah.
Yes. As soon as I seen it, I was like, "Oh man, this should be a Kavara video right here." Well, makes sense.
One of the things I was thinking about with this movie, and I think maybe because I recently watched like a bunch of Italian movies, and the fact that Herzog's European, and this movie, it feels like one of those like late 70s like Italian films that is supposed to be taking place in the United States, right? But all the characters are Europeans, and it's not shot in the United States. You know what I mean? Like you'll watch
the New York Ripper. Or something.
Yeah, like you'll watch like a Dario Argento film or a Lucio Fulci movie, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is supposed to take place in Massachusetts, and it's like the family is like a British guy and like an Italian lady, and like and it's all dubbed and everything, and there's no.
Right.
And it's obviously not Massachusetts. It's like, somewhere in Italy, like Trieste, Italy or something. And even the dialogue is like alien. It's not like American vernacular, you know what I mean? It's not like a colloquial sort of thing. It's obviously a European impression of what they think American people are like,
Right. Well, I mean, that's where Nicolas Cage, like, it's one of my complaints about him, where I think he drops the ball almost every time, is that it seems like as through the course of movies he's in, the way he speaks and his dialogue and his voice just like kind of changes. Even like the last movie I watched, and I know you and Jeff covered this on Necro, was Color Out of Space.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's intentional. Like, it seemed like halfway through the movie, he almost started talking like Donald Trump.
Well, actually, I have an answer for that because.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
That actually was intentional because in Color Out of Space, he was playing like himself, and then there was in the very beginning of the movie they were referencing his father, right? So as he was coming under the influence of the color, he would slip into these expressions of what his father was like, you know what I mean? So the Donald Trump voice was like his dad, and his other voice was him,
Okay, I didn't catch on to that.
Yeah, that was something that was talked about if you read, things with Richard Stanley but I get what you're saying, like he's got a weird delivery, and in this movie, it just. That feeds into what I was saying though, but the most perplexing thing about it is the guy who wrote this is American, like the dialogue was written by an American, right? Who you would imagine? I mean, he wrote for L.A. Law, right? Which takes place in L.A. and he's familiar with how American people speak, but everything about this movie, even like the there was like the titles and stuff, like there would be like post-Katrina New Orleans, it's like it's like the New York Ripper or something like that. There'd be like New York City 1985 or something like that, It reminded me of like a fucking Italian horror film, just from the very beginning, and then the very forced like vernacular and like some of the like one of my favorite scenes. It's like, we can get to that later, but it's just like there's a scene where like it's like so fucking out there, and I'm like, who the hell would ever think to do this, But it's hard to believe that it's like a guy who wrote for TV that came up with this script,
I wonder if you're thinking about the scene that I'm thinking about right now.
Which one?
Like you said, we'll get.
Which one is
the
it?
iguana scene? The iguana scene.
That's another one, but there's additional one that it's like, all right. I mean, we're not going to go through the movie beat by beat. So anyway, it's like Nicolas Cage, the cop, he does his job well, right? But he has an injury to his back, and that's when we see him descend into the world of drug addiction, because they and this is actually a common story with a lot of people. Like I know a lot of people who get addicted to heroin because they like to party, but I also know a handful of people who have had injuries where they start with oxy and then they start, getting into like, being full on addicts,
Sure. Yeah. That's a common thing.
So he's taking pain medication, and they shift a few years or 6 months down the line, and they show him rolling up to a crime scene. And he's like, does a key bump of cocaine, you know what I mean? And it seems like cocaine is his drug of choice,
Right.
So that's how he gets, addicted to drugs. And, but, he's got Eva Mendes plays like this high level prostitute, this high dollar prostitute that that's like his girlfriend. And unlike Harvey Keitel's character in this, he's not married. So, he's just out there in the streets, slinging dick. You know what I mean?
Going buck wild.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the setting for the story. Similar to Abel Ferrara's version of the film, he has a gambling problem, and that's where Brad Dourif comes in, and he's his bookie, and he starts digging a deep hole for himself of debts, and that's part of him getting out of this whole thing. And there's a murder case that he's involved with. They're investigating the murder of these African immigrants, and the connection to a drug overlord. And that's played by a famous, I think the guy who plays the drug guy is like some kind of famous rapper or something like that.
Exhibit.
Exhibit. He plays Big Fate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Not the kind of rap I'm into, but yes, I guess he was pretty popular.
Yeah. I don't really know much about him. I got to be honest. I'm not trying to be like cool or anything like that. I just, I think after maybe the late 90s, I kind of dropped off with my hip hop stuff,
Yeah, it was even earlier than that. So that's why, I don't, it's just not someone that was ever on my radar, but I know the name. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this movie? I think I've said I put my thoughts out there, but what are your ideas about this movie?
What do I even say? Well, first of all, I really enjoyed the movie. I watched it twice. I watched it today, and I watched it last night. And I watched it originally when it came out, but I don't know if I may have fell asleep halfway through. I never finished watching it because I feel like I watched it for the first time. Although some of the scenes definitely came back to me, like the first scene, because they go back to this kind of similar situation where the young couple's coming out of the nightclub called the Gators Retreat.
Yeah.
And the scene that takes place in the parking lot. Right. So that definitely came back to me. I'm like, oh shit, I remember this. But dude, it's just like such a wild ride, and it doesn't make any sense on the surface. Like I keep saying, with a guy like Werner Herzog, like direct this, because I'm a fan of the Nosferatu remake. I'm not an expert with his films. I've seen a few. I've seen the Grizzly Man documentary and stuff, and they're all like serious films. And this is just like, it's almost plays like you said, like some of those Italian movies that are set in America, or even like Grindhouse stuff, but not that extreme, it's just it's so unhinged, dude. Like the original Bad Lieutenant is like you referenced Taxi Driver, and I feel like that's a great comparison. It's like Taxi Driver happening in the early 90s as opposed to, when the original Taxi Driver was based in 76 or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere like that.
Maybe a bit earlier. Yeah. So it definitely has that feel, but Port of Call, New Orleans is just like, it's just so fucking crazy. I mean, some of my complaints were it was definitely too long.
Says you.
In the whole... What's that?
Says you. I don't know. I was cool with that, but whatever.
Well, I feel like it was unnecessarily long. It was a lot of fun, it was like a crazy movie, but like I feel like it got bogged down with like the scenes with his father. And when he takes Eva Mendes, Frankie, his girlfriend, when he takes her out to his father's house, and like I feel like a lot of that just didn't need to be in there. Like it just could have been completely edited out. It was almost like no reason for it. And I felt like there was like 20 minutes worth of that. And I was like, why? It just seemed to slow the movie down a lot.
I agree with that. Yeah, I can see that point.
It was like that scene where he takes her out in the back and there's this like little like shed kind of thing where he says he used to hang out a lot as a kid, and he had found some silver spoon he dug up in the dirt and he hid it in there. And I'm like, well, what's the fucking point of this? Like, there was no point to any of it. And it was just like, it goes from him like fucking, fucking smoking crack and fucking some guy's girlfriend in front of him in a parking lot to like this like fairy tale of him like when he was a kid. It didn't fit with like the crazy narrative that was going on. It was just like seemed to really bog it down to me. That's kind of really my only complaint about the movie, though. Other than that, I thought it was a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The movie came out like 12 years ago at this point, 13 years ago. So I've gotten over my my issues with it being called Bad Lieutenant. You know what I mean?